So please give him a warm welcome, okay?
Well, I can say Mary was a bit too much about me. It wasn't like, that much experience or stuff, but it's not that I loved wars, but the problem was that I was born in war, and I was raised in war. So, and I tried to be a journalist because it was a very passionate thing to do in those times. Basically, my masters were in, major were English literature and applied linguistics, but in those parts of the world, it was not earning much of the bread. So the only thing was to become a journalist. And I joined journalism in 2008 and 2007, and these were the times when Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, like the Arab Spring and the Middle East and the Central Asia were all on the brink of a war, or either they were in the war. So for me it was quite a golden times, to learn a lot, and especially going back from United States to Pakistan and Afghanistan and looking them from that perspective was like quite a experience, and especially when you are working with the Washington Post and New York Times as an intern and then as a reporter. So that was quite an experience. We didn't heard about anything in those times, like from 2008 and 2009 and 2010 and 2011 and 12 and even in 13, even in 2014, because in February 2014, if you look back to some of the articles and some of the journalists who have been writing articles and who have been stationed in Iraq and Syria, they were been saying that something is going to happen on in Mosul and Kirkuk and Tikrit. These are basically the major cities of Iraq and Syria. But nobody knew that what has been basically happening on in the ground. And then suddenly, at the end of February and in the beginning of March, a group came in, and just in one day, they attacked the Sanjar city, which was on the border of Iraq and Syria. In one night, they attacked the entire city and they massacred the entire people over there, which was approximately 14,000 people, and the rest fled. And a group came in known as calling themselves Khilafat al-Islamiyah, which means the Islamic Caliphate in Arabic. And nobody knew that who is the leader of them. Nobody knew that from where they came in. Well, they have a history basically that from where they came in, but then it was being composed later on from that. At that time, none of the journalists and none of the intelligence agency guys knew nothing about that. And then on the third day, they overran a bank in Iraq by taking away $530 million from it. And thus, the American government and the British MI6 and the CIA, and they got, oh my God. Because before then, there nothing as such happened in history. And in June, on the June 20th, and in July, they established a caliphate. And they start...
What's a caliphate? I don't understand what that is.
I'm coming to that.
Oh, yeah.
And caliphate is basically the concept of Islamic utopia, a very basic concept that Muslims should rule the entire world. Muslims should rule the entire world. And Muslims should have their government on the entire world while the rest of the religion should be subjugated. This is the basic idea, and that was the basic idea of ISIS. And this is where, in the very first official statement of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who proclaimed himself as a Khalifa. Caliphate. Caliphate word is basically being taken from the Quran, from the Arabic word, which shows that the man is second to God on the earth. Man is second to God on the earth. The rule of God would be implemented by a man. So he would be somehow the predecessor of God on earth to obey the rules of God and to establish the rule of God on earth. That's what's meant by the caliphate. That's what mean by the Khalifa. So the idea behind that when Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi proclaimed himself as Khalifa, so you can get it, that when a person says that I'm Khalifa, which means I'm second to God, so it means that the entire world should subjugate to him now. And those who revert, or those who don't accept him as a Khalifa, a war should be waged against them. They should be killed, or they should be subjugated in any way. At that time, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was having 15,000 men. On July 28, when he officially said it, he was having 15,000 men at his back. And at November 2014, he was having more than 150,000 men. And in his official first statement, he told the entire world that people of the world, oh Muslim from the world, come and join us in establishing caliphate. And people from 83 countries across the world start flying into Turkey, flying into Syria and Iraq to join them, including me. But I didn't went there to join him, rather, but to see that what the hell is been going on over there, because so many people are being running after him. By the way, who give it the name of ISIS? Or who give it how many names ISIS have? Or how many names you come across online? It has more than 10 names. But the most recognized name are the ISIS. When we say ISIS, what does it mean? Islamic State. Because the Khalifa word simply somehow means Islamic State, the first ever Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, because it was initially established in Iraq and Syria. Then they call themselves ISIL. ISIL, Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Levant is basically the area of the Iraq, the Gulf, when you say Middle East. So Middle East, because in November, when they're calling themselves ISIL, at that time, they were having an area geographically in Saudi Arabia, parts of Dubai, some parts in Kuwait and Qatar, in Iraq, Egypt, and they were going towards Israel. So that's why they named themselves ISIL. The Arab media gave them the name of Daesh. Daesh basically means Dawlatul Islamiyya fil Iraq wa Sham, which means the same thing, pronounce it Islamic State of Syria and Iraq. Then they're also known as Islamic State, or the State of Islam, or the Caliphate State, or the terrorist states, or in the same way, just Dawlatul Islamiyya, which means in the same way Islamic State, or Dawlatul Khilafa, which means the state of the Caliphate. These were all the names that were being given to them. By the way, one thing you have mentioned about most of the terrorist organizations, that they have lots of names. Loads and loads of names. They keep on changing their names. Why is it so? Because when the government banned a terrorist organization by a name, because the government cannot say that we are going to ban Irfan or person ABC, because you can ban a person ABC as a terrorist, but you cannot make a list of 150,000 people and say that these are all terrorists, because you don't have much of their names. They work in the shadow. So what do you do there? You ban the organization. You ban the measure name of them. So what they do that when you ban the name, so they put 100 or 200 or 300 people associated to that name, and they change their name, and the rest of the people comes to that name. This is where you would come across lots of terrorist organizations in the world, that they keep on changing the name abruptly, within days. Or sometimes they have 10 organizations working in an umbrella group under one. And this is what these guys were being doing. So this is what we were been talking about, that how come ISIS came into being? For that, you have to go to the political and socio-economic political structure of Iraq and Syria, which would take hours and hours. But what happened in Iraq after the US, I would now call it invasion. Before that, we were not supposed to call it invasion until and unless the David Cameron and Tony Blair and Bush said that it was a mistake. So it means that Iraq was being invaded in 2003. So when Iraq was being invaded in 2003, in 2004 and 2005, more than 600,000 people were being killed. Iraqi people were being killed. And what the American government did, or what the NATO and the American allied troops did in Iraq, they overthrew Saddam government, which was a Sunni government, by the way, and they make a Shia government into power. Now there is a big, huge sectarian violence always going on between Shias and Sunnis in Islam. So what happened at that time that the Shia started mass execution of the Sunnis. From 2006, 7, 8, and 9, it was been going on, from cities to cities, cities to cities. The Sunni leadership, terrorist leadership, they think that if we are going to be slaughtered by Shias like this, and the government is basically a Shia-based government in Iraq, so we would be no more in this part of the world. So they said that let's come up with such kind of execution and such kind of brutality so that the world should know that what we are going to do with the humanity and especially the Shias. And this was basically the force behind, this was the motive behind the formation of ISIS, to overthrow the Shias from this part of the world, because they think that Shias are the most ferocious beings. They don't even consider them human beings, by the way. They say that the first duty of a Muslim is to kill them. Not a Christian, not a Jew, not an atheist, not a Sikh, Hindu, or anything, but the first duty of a Sunni is to kill Shia and then the rest of the people. And that's why when you keep on studying these stories of the sex slaves and everything, so they made their women like sex slaves and been sold them into the markets and stuff. So it wasn't just from one side, it was from both sides, because this is what Shia government did to them. So you can see a balance in it when what the ISIS was being doing. But you cannot come across those stories in the media that what Shias did, the atrocities to the Sunnis, because at that time it was being supported by America and supported by the Western powers. That's why we only see the one kind of stories, not other kind of stories. So as a journalist, you need to be a bit objective about it when you look at that. How come a person comes inside and he starts shooting at the people and he kills them? So when you basically go to the deep psychological or go to his story, so you definitely come across such stories that something has happened to that person in the past. And this is the repercussion, and that's basically been the reaction of those things.
So they believe, as you were saying, that the Muslims should live under, should be one Islamic state. Is that
exactly? Yeah, but when they say Muslims, they say just those Muslims who follow IS, who follow the caliphate. Those people who don't accept the caliphate, they are not Muslims, by the way. Just remember this thing, whenever you come across the word Muslim in IS, paradigm, that means those people who only believe in caliphate, who take Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was the leader of them, as their leader, nobody else, by the way. So when you come across this kind of literature, this kind of data, so you better know about it and what they mean. Okay, so
they gained prominence in 2014, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, it was 2014 when they said that, and they drew the Iraqi forces, the established Iraqi forces from Iraq in 2014, and they appealed to the Muslims all over the world. In his first speech, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was the leader, the Khalifa, in his first speech, he appealed to the entire government to join them, the entire Muslim world to join them, to establish a Muslim world under Muslim rule, to obey the rules of God and His Prophet. And 30 to 50,000 Muslims, they start flooding from around 85 to 100 countries to join him. Okay, this was the area in 2014 which ISIS held, basically the colored one, the red one. So it was, and then later on, they basically came to this point, the Damascus. They went to the Damascus. So it was like entire Iraq and half of the Syria. And then parts of leading towards Turkey, leading towards Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and all these things. And once they captured it, they would have captured half of the continent over there in that part of the world. So this was the area when they were holding on in 2014. In 2015, they were having a major chunk of the land over that area. Okay, once again, we will go to and fro a bit. Basically, this was the Jamaat al-Tawheed wal Jihad, which is means like, you know, the group who would carry on jihad, the group which would carry on jihad against the Shias. This was formed in 1999. At that time, even Iraq was not being attacked, or even Iraq was not being invaded. And what that happened that this group joined Al-Qaeda in 2004. And
You know that Al-Qaeda is Osama bin Laden, do you?
everybody knows that. Yeah,
You don't get too complicated.
yeah.
Go on.
And in October 2006, the declaration of Islamic State in Iraq. But at that time, they were thinking, because I said that nobody gave them like, you know, any attention. Because even I can get up and I can have like, you know, a small video and can say that I want to establish an Islamic rule in Ireland. So anybody is going to give me any attention, they will say he's some lunatic, like, you know, some whatever. So they would say like, forget it. But when they did the same thing in 2014, so you really see that how they did it with 150,000 men by And in April, they started taking a bit of territory, but that territory doesn't mean that they were taking chunks of land. It was like, for example, taking a village and then giving it back, and taking a village and then giving it back, and taking a village and then giving it back. It was like that in 2013. And in February 2014, they said that we are no more part of Al-Qaeda. Rather, Al-Qaeda would be part of us. In February, and in June, they declared the caliphate. And in November, they claimed territories in Libya, Egypt, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen. In November, you can imagine, just counted that how many months it took them. June, July, August, September, October, November, 5 months. And they were having lands in 5 countries, 5 major countries of the world. So you can imagine that how quickly they were being going on. This is basically the structure of the ISIS. We are not supposed to think about many things, but this is just one guy, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who is the commander-in-chief and caliphate, who is the main guy, and the rest is, by the way, they didn't come up. It was very unique about them, that why we have been talking about ISIS, why we have not been talking about Taliban, why we have not been talking about Al-Shabaab, why we have not been talking about any other militant or terrorist group in the world, why ISIS? Because what they did, uniquely to the world and the entire planet, that they came up with so much preparations that when they surged in June, everything was settled down. The entire documentation, officially and unofficially, the entire execution process, the entire strategies, they came up with an entire media cell. And they were running 3 media companies. And they were always like, you know, they were capturing oil wells, the revenues and extortion. And they were running a government. It wasn't an overnight. You can imagine like people, like the CIA and the MI6 and all these guys were like very surprised that how come it?
So they've been planning it for a long time.
Oh yeah, they were because when they attacked Syria, they were having at that time 10 planes too. They were having 10 fighter planes from Syrian government. So imagine you got it, and drones. They were surveilling the Iraqi American compounds from their drones. So they were even technologically, they were so much advanced that the Iraqi government and the Syrian government couldn't even fight them.
But the big thing with them is, where they got struck lucky was, I think, as you said at the start, they're the wealthiest terrorist group because
In
they
the
got
world,
this
yeah,
bank.
so far.
They got this bank.
Yeah.
And they seized.
Oh, it wasn't just a bank. When they captured parts of, like, you know, when they captured in the map, when they captured these areas, these are basically the, okay, so when they captured the Mosul, and when they captured the Raqqa, and they captured the parts of Kirkuk and the Baghdad, basically, you know about Iraq, and you know about Syria, that these are oil-rich countries. So they were capturing oil. They were having oil wells. And what they did, that they took away the revenue of it. What they said that before that Syria and Iraq were taking taxes from oil. And the world needs oil, by the way. So what they did, that they start selling oil to Turkey, they start selling oil to the Nigeria, they start selling oil to Russia. Russia were taking oil from them at that time, but in the shadow. Because they were emptying the oil wells at that time. That's why you see, like, you know, if at that time you look at the news, the entire news was about how to stop, like, you know, selling the oil, because they were selling it like in millions of barrels per day on the daily basis, because they needed money for that. They needed money for war. So they captured like more than 3,000 wells of oil. And they were being selling out this oil. And on the daily basis, they were saying that on a daily basis, they were having like around about $600 to $700 million of economy they were being generating. And what they did, they start farming agricultural lands in Syria and Iraq. And they were also like generating revenue from it. They were taking extortion from the people. What would they do? They would kidnap government official, and then they tell the government that, okay, you are supposed to pay this much $1 million, so we are going to give them back to you. Governors, fighter pilots, anything, because when you are capturing a land, that means that you would capture all the treasures and all the things in that. And what they did, that they keep on giving these auctions to the Toyota companies and buying like, new Toyota cars from the Japan. And China was included, and China was involved in that initially. Turkey was involved in that initially. The Eastern Europe, some countries were being involved in that country unless the UN told them that not to do this thing. Like, what are you been doing? Like, you have been feeding a monster, which they were at that time. So, and at one time they said that the revenue of the ISIS in 2015, it reached up to like, I think so $19 billion, like, in a month wise. And they said that they were able to run this war for more than the rest of the almost a decade. For 10 years, they can like, feed the people, and they can have like, these fighters and stuff.
I remember why we're talking about this for journalism is where they hit the headlines was when they started beheading people. Do you remember that? Yeah. And they beheaded a journalist from the States. Yeah. He was working with, what's the online?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember
online one, yeah.
We actually, about 3 or 4 years ago, we were able to do a Skype interview with the editor of that newspaper, who spoke about this journalist, that he didn't want him to go back. He knew he was in danger going back to Iraq at the time. And that really hit the headlines, didn't it,
yeah.
Irfan?
But it wasn't, before than that, when they basically looted the bank, that was the time when the Americans got like, attracted towards it. That some organization got $530 million with themselves. It was not about the journalists, to be true. It was about the bank. When they looted a bank with 500, and what they did, that they were waiting for it for months and months and months, because the American government was like, accumulating the money for the Iraqi government, the entire because that was the center. So they were distributing this money from their central bank, and they looted it on the night when the money comes in, with the $530 million. And that was the time that the world said, oh my God, what happened, because it's been gone. And dollar is the international currency. You cannot stop dollar. You can stop any other currency, but how you are supposed to stop dollar, in the market, because they were already having it. So that was the problem. Now come to another state that, why so many people join ISIS? Like, why? Why would I join ISIS? Why would you join ISIS? Why would somebody join ISIS? Apart from knowing all these things about them, apart from watching the mass execution video, and apart from knowing why would my daughter or my wife or my son or my mother would go and join them? That is the biggest question, which still the words keep on asking and answering. When they came on the social media, so they flooded Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And they were very easily accessible at that time, very easily accessible at that time. The other terrorist organization, they work on pamphlets. They work on pamphlets, and they work on some small unedited videos. But when these guys came in 2014 with some of the videos, for the first time when I saw this video, I was thinking it is some shooting by a Hollywood movie, because it was exactly like that. Exactly like, the way it is being edited in Hollywood style. With flashings, with backgrounds editing, with backgrounds, Islamic songs, with the mass execution, portraying the mass execution in such a way that you said, oh my God, I really want to do that. And they just didn't do that. They just didn't do that. They also made video games for the kids. They made video games for the kids. They made war games for people. They made games for people, online games for people. And they made surveys on the polls, surveys, like Gallup surveys, on the media. They established 2 newspapers. They established 4 magazines. They established 6 radio stations. They established a TV station. And in one day, they would tweet, like roundabout they said, like the average was 146,000 tweets from ISIS social media group. 146,000 tweets. So what they would do, that for example, you know that 5,000 tweets are enough to make a hashtag. 5,000 tweets are enough to make a hashtag on the Twitter, by the way. When you retweet something for 5,000 times, it becomes a hashtag on the world web. Imagine you do 146,000 about some incident, what would make it up to it? It would be the first in the globe. So for months and months, you would see like ISIS, you would see Dawlat al-Islamiyya and Dawlat al-Khilafah and all these, whatever the thing was, on the top of the world. Imagine like, you know, and they were creating bots. They have a group of hackers. They would be like hacking the websites. They would be hacking the media sites. They would be hacking like, you know, and they would be sending the news to, because the Washington Post and the New York Times were not allowed at that time to publish about them, because the word was too much like, you know, in the danger of like, you know, that people can get influence from that if you have been promoting. So what they did, and they knew it. They knew it that how to grab attention and how to grab attraction of the people. So they were like, you know, brandishing their organization on the Twitter, the same thing on the YouTube. Even at one time they were earning from the YouTube. They were earning from the YouTube because this was their own people, and they would advertise it, and they would be earning from the YouTube. Because they were having bots, and they would be commenting on it, and they would be liking on it. Because when you would go to a Twitter account and you would say, oh my God, it's been retweeted like 100,000 times, you would definitely look at it because it's on the top of the list. It's the hashtag. You cannot find European Union or Ireland or anybody there except for ISIS. And for months and months it's been going on. You would definitely get attracted to it. Like, let me open it, what's been going on. And when you open it, and it shows you a video of a Muslim man being hidden in New Zealand, of a Muslim man being tortured in America, of a Muslim man being tortured in somewhere, some other part of the world. And this ISIS person, in the return, he has grabbed a Christian man and he said, I am slaughtering his throat to compensate for the slaughter of in New Zealand, for example, of in America, of this thing and of that thing.
But do people want to look at those videos?
Exactly.
Like, they're very violent.
Yeah, because when I am alone, or they say that when people are in the bathroom, they do certain stuff like, you know, if you look at them like, you know, the way they make face like, you know, make changes in front of a mirror, or in the bathroom, or when people play with kids, you would find a very different kind of human beings when they are in those positions or in those poses. So same as in front of the digital media. If you think that I am not vulnerable and I can like, you know, look at the ISIS all alone on just your mobile phone, you would go for that. You said, like, let me look at what exactly they've been doing. And it was not always about the beheadings. It was most
curiosity.
of it. Oh yeah, out of curiosity.
Yeah.
And they would attract you in certain ways. Like for example, they would ask you that, okay, we are building up our economy. What are the suggestions you people like, you know, oh Muslim, what are the suggestions you want to give us about establishing a proper economic state? Now, if somebody gives you this question, so you would, and if you are an economist, you would definitely want to give your opinion. And the same time when you give your opinion, they comes back to you and they start retweeting your tweets. And they start retweeting you. Like for example, you say that, well, if you have many aeroplanes so you can build up your economy, like this is a very obscure idea. And you have like, you know, 10,000 retweets of yours, just this opinion. And you say, oh wow, like I'm a very important person. I should be. And then they keep on telling you that we are considering your opinion. We are considering your survey. As a journalist, they tell you that what we should do to make our videos more accessible to the people. And you say that, okay, make them black and white. And you see, and they tell you, oh brother, like, you know, thank you for your suggestion and God bless you and this thing and that thing. And you see your this tweet being retweeted 20,000 times. What will you do by that way? You are definitely going to do a trap because this was their trap. And then the next thing is like they are being after you, and they're telling you that, okay, give us suggestions, give us what you have. So you feel important.
That's how they got people in.
And they got people in. Because this is how the social media works.
But they must have had guys that were really expert at all this.
So that's why I've been telling you that they were having hackers. They were having hackers. They were having like, a social media, complete social media team with them. And it was not just one team. At one time they were running 3 media production houses. Media production houses. Companies.
Yeah.
Not just like something like, because when they were the richest organization and they needed that how to, because most of the world organizations, the multinational organizations, basically after ISIS, after the downfall of them, they adopted their strategies that how to attract people. The other terrorist organization, they work on pamphlets. They work on pamphlets and they work on like, some small unedited videos. But when these guys came in 2014 with some of the videos, for the first time when I saw this video, I was thinking that it is some shooting by a Hollywood movie, because it was exactly like that. Exactly like, the way it is being edited in a Hollywood style. With flashings, with backgrounds editing, with backgrounds, Islamic songs, with the mass execution, portraying the mass execution in such a way that you said, oh my God, I really want to do that. And they just didn't do that. They just didn't do that. They also made video games for the kids. They made video games for the kids. They made war games for people. They made games for people, online games for people. And they made surveys on the polls, surveys, like Gallup surveys, on the media. They established 2 newspapers. They established 4 magazines. They established 6 radio stations. They established a TV station. And in one day, they would tweet, like roundabout, they said like the average was 146,000 tweets from ISIS social media group. 146,000 tweets. So what they would do, that for example, that 5,000 tweets are enough to make a hashtag. 5,000 tweets are enough to make a hashtag on the Twitter, by the way. When you retweet something for 5,000 times, it becomes a hashtag on the world web. Imagine you do 146,000 about some incident. What would make it appropriate? It would be the first in the globe. So for months and months, you would see like ISIS, you would see Doctoral Islamiyya and Doctoral Khilafah and all these, whatever the thing was, on the top of the world. Imagine like, 100, and they were creating bots. They have a group of hackers. They would be like hacking the websites. They would be hacking the media sites. They would be hacking like, and they would be sending the news to, because the Washington Post and the New York Times were not allowed at that time to publish about them, because the word was too much like, in the danger of like, that people can get influence from that. And if you have been promoting. So what they did, and they knew it. They knew it that how to grab attention and how to grab attraction of the people. So they were like, brandishing their organization on the Twitter, the same thing on the YouTube. Even at one time they were earning from the YouTube, by the way. They were earning from the YouTube because this was their own people, and they would advertise it, and they would be earning from the YouTube. Because they were having bots, and they would be commenting on it, and they would be liking on it. Because when you would go to a Twitter account and you would say, oh my God, it's been retweeted like 100,000 times, you would definitely look at it because it's on the top of the list. It's the hashtag. You cannot find European Union or Ireland or anybody there except for ISIS. And for months and months it's been going on. You would definitely get attracted to it. Like, let me open it, what's been going on. And when you open it, and it shows you a video of a Muslim man being hidden in New Zealand, of a Muslim man being tortured in America, of a Muslim man being tortured in some other part of the world. And this ISIS person, in the return, he has grabbed a Christian man and he said, I am slaughtering his throat to compensate for the slaughter of in New Zealand, for example, of in America, of this thing and of that thing.
But did people want to look at those videos?
Exactly.
Like, they're very violent.
Yeah, because when I am alone, or they say that when people are in the bathroom, they do certain stuff like, if you look at them like, the way they make face like, make changes in front of a mirror or in the bathroom or when people play with kids, you would find a very different kind of human beings when they are in those positions or in those poses. So same as in front of the digital media. If you think that I am not vulnerable and I can like, look at the ISIS all alone on just your mobile phone, you would go for them. You said, like, let me look at what exactly they've been doing. And it was not always about the beheadings. It was most
curiosity.
Oh yeah, out of curiosity.
Yeah.
And they would attract you in certain ways. Like for example, they would ask you that, okay, we are building up our economy. What are the suggestions you people like, oh Muslim, what are the suggestions you want to give us about establishing a proper economic state? Now, if somebody gives you this question, so you would, and if you are an economist, you would definitely want to give your opinion. And the same time when you give your opinion, they comes back to you and they start retweeting your tweets. And they start retweeting you. Like for example, you say that, well, if you have many aeroplanes so you can build up your economy, like this is a very obscure idea. And you have like, 10,000 retweets of yours, just this opinion. And you say, oh wow, like I'm a very important person. I should be, and then they keep on telling you that we are considering your opinion. We are considering your survey. As a journalist, they tell you that what we should do to make our videos more accessible to the people. And you say that, okay, make them black and white. And you see, and they tell you, oh brother, like, thank you for your suggestion and God bless you and this thing and that thing. And you see your this tweet being retweeted 20,000 times. What will you do, by the way? You are definitely going to do a trap because this was their trap. And then the next thing is like they are being after you and they're telling you that, okay, give us suggestions. Give us what you have. So you feel important.
That's how they got people in.
And they got people in. Because this is how the social media works.
But they must have had guys that were really expert at all this.
So that's why I've been telling you that they were having hackers. They were having hackers. They were having like, a complete social media team with them. And it was not just one team. At one time they were running 3 media production houses. Media production houses. Companies.
Yeah.
Not just like something like, because when they were the richest organization and they needed that how to do it. Because most of the world organizations, the multinational organizations, basically after ISIS, after the downfall of them, they adopted their strategies that how to attract people. Because they needed that how they are supposed to do it, and at the mass level. So most of the retweets and most of the content on the online media, it would be about basically these subjects. The first one would be to Islamic utopia. And it would be most of the time, a woman would come in and she would be telling the stories that how happy she is in the Islamic State and how happy she is doing the window shopping and how everything is so cheap with no taxes, nothing. Imagine you go over there and you get a car for $100. You get a Toyota Hilux for $100, a Mercedes for like $300. What you would do? You would not go, and you got a desert to go there and to roam there, and you would like, and then they take pictures of yours, like, going into the market and playing with your kids and stuff. And everybody just want to go there and to enjoy it, to see that what exactly is being done for them without taxes, without paying any taxes to any government, and having a. By the way, at that time they were paying 1 foot soldier. 1 foot soldier they were paying at that time per week $800. Now, a foot soldier earning $800 per week. Nowhere ever like this has been happening in any part of the world. Show me a foot soldier in the world who is been earning $800 per week, with no, overtimings and nothing. For a computer scientist, because they said that we need the IT experts. To the IT experts at that time, they were paying more than $30,000 per month.
Okay, so they were throwing money at people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were telling you that, okay, come to us, sell your expertise to us. Whatever expertise do you got? Whatever expertise do you got? Like for example, one of my friends told me that if you want to join them, how much they are going to pay you. And I said, like, this is the one of the story, basically. And I said, well, can they pay me, like, $500,000 per year? And they said, let me connect you somebody. We were in Iraq. And he said that you would just write a figure down to us and we will give it to you. You have to work for us. Write a figure down. You have been saying $500,000? Okay, it's done.
Was this for you personally or just for journalists they want?
No, just for me personally, because they look at your database and they say that, okay, this person can work for them or not.
Oh, you have the expertise, you had English.
They look at your expertise, and imagine, it just came out from my mouth. Like, never ever in my life I can think about, earning $500,000 per year until and unless, I robbed a bank or something.
Were you tempted?
Oh, yeah. I'll try to. No, I didn't.
No.
How can you? Because you know this thing, you know that.
But the point is, they lure you in like that, but then, like we see when they get people and they...
Yeah, this is what,
and they indoctrinate them, you don't know what's going to happen to you.
The Jihadi John, which was at one time who was the most, the biggest celebrity at that time, they were paying them like $3 million per year. $3 million per year. And a common man in Iraq, because I meet the ISIS guys, they would be patrolling the street and I would ask them that, okay, how much money you have been having in per month? $18,000 per month, by the way. $18,000 to $20,000 to $30,000. It was very common over there. And then you get lots of these amenities for kids. And if you meet if you, for example, married a woman, or you bring a woman with yourself into the ISIS rank, you would be given $30,000 as a bonus. So it was a hell lot of money over there, and every person thinking okay, I don't got anything in my life. At least I should go there and fight for them, at least I should have money. And then you are being given a king protocol over there.
But the problem was that, I presume you're going to go on and say this, that once they got you in, they control you.
Exactly. So
It's
then you
a
cannot come
lure.
out. Yeah, because the first thing is they will give you four weeks training. 4 weeks training, because this was important for it. 4 weeks training in combat. And they make videos of you in those 4 weeks. And they make videos of you, and they would propagate those videos on the international scenario having your face in it. Now imagine if I was in Ireland, I'm an Irish person, and I went I slipped. I slipped from the Irish intelligence, and I go over there. And the next thing is my family and friends and all you guys who are here, they see me in a video with the ISIS. What they're going to do, I'm definitely banned on from Ireland and European Union. I cannot come over here, no way, because they knew it. So now I am their guy.
But
Yeah.
here then, so what's the other thing they do? Brutality, is it?
Yeah, brutality they would do, the mass brutality to seek the attention and to tell the Muslim and their people, because they would never ever carry on any brutality on their own people, by the way. They would inflict the brutality on the others to inflict fear in their mind, inflict this kind of fear in their mind that they even even afraid to even come and join or even say anything against them. And this is what they did. Because for the first time the world saw mass execution of 25 soldiers, they would not spare anybody.
And that happened.
Yeah, one day they sent us a video, by the way. I was in Afghanistan, and they sent us a video, and it was about the Taliban leaders. And what they did to them, by the way, it was so brutal. They made a video out of them. They had captured 8 Taliban commanders, and they put them on the tank mines. They set them down on a tank mine with their hands and feet tied. And they were blowing them one by one. Just imagine you are looking at your friend just 10 meters away from you. He's been sitting on a mine, and they would took that amazing thing in front of them, the clock, and they would see that now it's 1 minute and 2 minutes and 3 minutes and 4 minutes and 5 minutes, and boom, and then it's you, and then it's another friend, and then it's another friend. When Afghan people, they saw it and they said, we have never seen any such kind of brutality. And then you are being standing over there, and you are being singing songs. Yeah. And slaughtering, and beheading,
and shooting in such a way, in a Hollywood style, that it seemed like you would see.
Do you know what I can't understand is, like, some of us saw some of that brutality, and I mean, it was edited, put on mainstream news, like we didn't see the actual beheading.
Yeah.
But I can't understand how, you know, circulating these awful brutality videos actually managed to help them to recruit people.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
It didn't help to recruit these people. It didn't help them to recruit people. It helped their oppositions, the Shias guys and the Kurdish guys, not to come and attack them.
Okay, all right.
It didn't help them to recruit
Made people afraid of
It made people afraid of them. Because never ever people saw this thing. You guys remember the video of a pilot, of a Syrian pilot, what they did to him, that they put him into a cage, and he was the son of a general. They put him in the cage, and they let fire to him. And they were making videos of him the way he was being dying in that cage with fire on his body, so that he cannot even, like, you know, that he cannot. And they would come up with this mass brutality. You would not even, like, because in one of the instances in Iraq, they have captured some soldiers, and we were thinking, and they said that today they have honored it from the radio, that today you would see such kind of, you know, punishment that you would have never come across, because these people have killed ISIS guys. And we were thinking what they're going to do with them. And what they did, that they bring them into a car, all three of them, they put them into the men's square, like the way they put it, in, like, you know, in front of the poles. And all these people were supposed to come and see them.
Yes.
So I was also standing over there and I was looking at it. And then they came up in drums, like this much big drums, and they put them into drums, and they put a lot of, what we said, CaCO3, like, you know, that live limestone, but the limestone which is alive, like, which is not dead.
Yeah, it's like quicksand, isn't it? Yeah.
Not quicksand, but it was limestone basically. So they put the limestone across them, around them, and then they put acid on them.
Yeah.
To double the effect, and, like, you know, and they were going down in it. They were going down in it one by one, and their entire body was being mutilated.
Okay,
like,
we don't need the
Yeah. And I was looking at them.
Yeah.
So when you look at these things, like, you know, what it makes of you, it makes you a very violent person in your mind, and you don't know.
Yeah.
You get used to violence. And then you said, okay, let me join them, because this is what, like, you know, they've been offering. And it went on and on and on every day. On every Friday, basically, they would, like, you know, invite you to the main market after the Friday prayers to see these things, the atrocities. Yeah.
But we just go on to how they targeted people online.
Yeah.
Because we don't really need.
This is very important. This is probably the most important one. That the potential targets of ISIS recruitment are usually individuals who have black and white view of the world. They tend to think in categorical terms, such as good and bad, or right and wrong. They also usually harbor feelings of being inadequate, disrespected, full of unfulfilled ambitions, angry at real or perceived injustice, and who are blaming other people or institutions for their woes.
So they're vulnerable people.
Most of the time, 90% of the time. 90% of the time, these are those people who, out of fun, out of poor ambitiousness, are looking at the injustice, are looking at whatever been happening around the corrupt government, are looking at, like, you know, they are being, like, immigrant to a country, or they are not being giving asylum and stuff like that. They are being, like, you know, something wrong with their head, thinking about either this thing is right or this thing is wrong. There is no gray area in their life. And most of the people somehow in the West are like that. The depressed, the suppressed, the loneliness, the frustrated people.
I wouldn't say most of the people in the West are like
Most,
that.
yeah.
There are some people.
I noticed it. I like when you look at the people over here and you think that there is some dysfunctionality in them. You look at them and you say there is some dysfunctionality in them.
Yeah, but you can't say the majority of people.
The majority in certain ways, I would say the majority in certain ways, because you know that the economically deprived people, most of the people who join them are the economically deprived people.
Yeah, but it's
15,000
most of the
people.
people who join them are, but you can't make
I
a
would
sweeping
say,
statement
I would
like
say
that.
when the majority in the West, I would say about Muslims.
because nobody, like, in the Christians or the Jews joined them. It was just very few cases.
Yeah, but
3 or
just
4 cases.
qualify it, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you look at it from this perspective, they were, most of them, I would say most of them, were basically economically deprived, suppressed, hidden by loneliness, frustration, or some other issues, family issues and stuff. Because this is what, like, now the world has been thinking, like, the psychological terminologies for all those foreign fighters who've been through them. And I think so 8 people from Ireland been through, are being, like, held in connection with the direct connection to the ISIS so far. Much of in the Europe, most of it is from Sweden, by the way. Most of it is from Sweden and Spain. Okay, from where these foreign fighters and supporters are joining them? In December 2015, 30,000 fighters. When I say fighters, that's why I say fighters, because we were thinking that all these people are fighters. Like even a communication scientist or even a journalist would be given like 4 weeks training of a combat. So basically they are used, for example, if you are not been working inside a media house or media room, you would be fighting. You would be fighting on the front zone. So that's why I use the word 30,000 fighters from 85 countries. That includes, like, European Union, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Russia, Indonesia, Tajikistan, which were like, these are the countries from which people were been thinking that nobody would come in to join them. But people, like, from these countries keep on, and lots of them are being, like, lots of the fighters from Central Asia, Chechnya, Bosnia, like, these Muslim states, went to join them. 4 women so far in Ireland are being under the investigation, are being arrested as being associated with the who are from Ireland. They were not from Ireland, by the way. Only just 1 woman from Ireland, but the rest of them, they got legal residents who are there. 3 of them are from Tajikistan. And 4 men, in which 2 of them were from Limerick. So they were also being arrested. But when the 2 of them, they were living in Limerick, by the way. They were not Limerick because one of them was from Pakistan. And the woman was from, I think he got a woman, so I think that she was actually, like, most probably from Pakistan. So
Were they arrested here, Irfan, was it?
yeah, they were got over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were got over here in Limerick. Yeah, and they said that they had some accomplices, like 3 more people, but they are still struggling for them because those 3 people, like they said that they changed their places and stuff, like, so they are still on the run. That what can happen next to them or when they are going to get arrested, because the security and intelligence agencies are not supposed to take out those documents into the public, that's why. Okay, their economic condition and in which countries ISIS fighters have been found. So if you look at it from the Finland to Ireland to Belgium, Sweden, Norway, France, US, and you look the entire, and this is like the biggest countries from which the ISIS fighters went to. By the way, in these kind of Asian countries, Indonesia got a huge chunk of ISIS fighters from it, Pakistan obviously. And by the way, it doesn't have a name, Afghanistan, because what that did, and it also doesn't have a name Turkey in it. You won't find the name of Turkey, and you won't find the name of Afghanistan in it, because for Afghanistan and Turkey, they made another chapter. They made another chapter of ISIS. They said that this is like, the outsourced chapters. For example, if a person in Afghanistan, they wants to join ISIS, they don't have to come to Syria and Iraq. They can even join them in their home countries. So it was known as the Islamic State of Khorasan. Or it was named as the Islamic State of the Turkey. So you can imagine that they have also like established local chapters of it. So in which you can find them and you would be receiving, because in Afghanistan they were receiving $30 million every month for recruitment. The guys were receiving $30 million every month for recruitment, and they were spreading the money like anything, like anything. They were, at one time they would giving like, millions and millions of dollars to people who were there, like, just to join them to increase the number. Forget about like, anything else. Okay, most of these words when you come across the internet, most of these words when you come across the internet, so that should link something in your mind. And you should definitely know that these guys are somehow related to the terrorist organizations. These are some of the names when you see on the internet. So there would be one or the other way associated to these things.
And what do you mean? Just go back to that there again.
Okay,
Like
if a person...
If we seen, like the first one, monotheist?
Yeah, but what they say, like, you know, if you see a message and which have the recurring sounds of monotheists, monotheists, monotheists. So you better know, and then with the explanation of the monotheism, and they keep on saying those words, muwahhideen, believers in oneness of God. So you better know that this is the person who is somehow trying to recruit certain people with such kind of messages.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the next one is that the Mujahideen?
Yeah,
is it?
yeah, Mujahideen. The second one is Mujahideen, because they would never ever call themselves as jihadists or Islamists or fundamentalists or terrorists or that. No, they would always call themselves as Mujahideen. Always. Always call themselves as Mujahideen. Or in other words, lions of the Islamic State, or lions of gods, or lions of the Prophet. They would never ever call themselves as jihadi. No. Jihadi is the term that is being basically the narrative that is being developed in the West through the East. They would never ever call themselves like, you know, jihadi. No, not at all. Not even in their literature, you would not find themselves calling themselves jihadi. They would always calling themselves mujahid, a person who carries on jihad.
Okay, so these are the phrases, yeah.
Yeah, these are the phrases
All right,
basically.
yeah.
And martyrdom seeker, they never ever call themselves suicide bombers, because in one of the interviews, you know, this is a I received a call from one of the Taliban commander, and they said that we have carried on this suicide bombing, and they call suicide bombing basically fidain. Fidain is a person who laid his life in the path of God. And I said, like, can you please tell me that what was the name of the suicide bomber? And he said that where exactly you have been sitting right now. And I said, well, I am sitting in my office in Kabul. And he said that if another time you said it again that he is a suicide bomber, we are going to come and like behead you. And I said, why? And he said, do you think that he was a suicide bomber? And now I was like stuck there. What to answer them then? Like, well, definitely he was a suicide bomber, but I couldn't even say it. Because if you call them suicide bomber, they will behead you. They're not suicide bombers. They're suicide bombers, like, you know, for them they are fidai or istishhadi. Istishhadi or fidai means a person who led his life in the path of God. And they are being taken as the most superior ones, like, you know, in the line.
So this is all propaganda line. They call them martyrdom seeker.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, so.
And the phrases, you would come across the online phrases most of the time which they use, like, you know, for themselves. Like somebody would come to you, or some messages would, like, you know, you would come across and they would be saying, in the shadow of the caliphate, it means like this person somewhere, one way or the other way, does belongs to ISIS, when he would be referring to such phrases like. And they would be telling you, oh, supporters of the Islamic State, the Brotherhood. They also use the word the Brotherhood a lot. A lot. For the people, for the common people, like, you know, to target the West. By the way, let's go a bit more deeper. ISIS have categorized their audience in 3 ways. They target the people in 3 ways. The local audience, the national audience, and the international, the Muslim world and the Western world. They have categorized it in 3 ways. For the local people, when they keep on giving the messages, they are different. They are very different. They are blunt messages. Their supporters are like the lines of the Islamic State, you are supposed to do this, 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 and this. The rest is for Muslims. When they try to target the Muslims across the world, like for example, they try to target the Muslims in Ireland, they would quote those messages in a different way. They would say, look at the Western cultures and the Western civilizations. Look at what they have done to the Muslims. Look at what they did to us like 2 centuries before. Look they what they did to the Israel. Look they what did to the people in the Second World War and the First World War. They would keep on giving you historical references. They would keep on, like, for example, just the recent video which has been taken out, it's about the New Zealand. That what happened in the New Zealand Muslims, and you can see that how they are slaughtering you, and you can see that how white supremacy is there and they've been taking over you. So this is the time for you to Muslims to carry out attacks against them.
and then they're showing you that how to carry out attacks against them. And they say that blow them with trucks, and how to make a time bomb, and how to make bomb from the soaps, and how to make this thing, and how to make that thing. By the way, in lots of their magazine, when you read and they tell you that how you can use explosive, or you can use bombs, or you can use this thing in homemade and from homemade things, which I hope so that everybody after watching their videos or reading their materials can.
No, that's not good, yeah.
Yeah, which is not good. Yeah.
So the next phrases anyway are, yeah.
And this is after most of their martyrs or the martyr seekers, they say, may God accept him. Like when they say, when you see this word, may God accept him, so you should basically know that these are the ISIS phrases they use for their people. These are specifically their catchlines. And prophetic methodology, in accordance with the prophetic methodology, ISIS guiding principles, and Bakaya. Basically, there is a bit tricky in all this, that why when ISIS, then let me put it in this way. ISIS believe that they are the only one who can stop the West, from the progression and from taking over the world. ISIS think that they are the only Muslim in the world and the only group in the world who can subjugate the rest of the entire world. And the area which they have chose for it, they know as Dabik. And Dabik is basically a prophetic land in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, in the monotheistic religion. Dabik is the area on which the last battle of the world would start and would end. That's why they have chosen this area, Dabik, and in most of their phrases you would see Dabik, 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 Dabik. And when they attacked this area, and when they captured Dabik, it was a small town in Damascus, near Damascus. When they attacked it, and when they got the area, so 90% of the Muslims, because I was in Syria at that time, and 90% of these people were choosing their ranks to join ISIS because they were thinking that they are real. And they had captured this town because they were thinking that now the Third World War or the Armageddon or the last world war is going to be over here. So they said that we want to be fighters in that. And according to Muslim religion, according to Islam, they said that the Muslims are going to get triumphant. According to Christians are said that they are going to triumph. And according to Judaism, they are going to triumph. Yeah.
We just need to move on a bit, sorry, yeah.
Whew. And these are the words they use for the enemies, by the way.
Yeah.
You would always find they use the word for the Western society, they use the word crusaders. So now you can see very clearly that what they have in their mind while referring towards the West. And they think that whosoever is not in their rank, they are infidels. They are infidels, by the way. This is taken from one of their video. If you look at it and they see you see the ISIS map and the rest of the world is black, and the ISIS map, which is black, it is turning everything into light. So they would use these kind of videos that how they are lightening the world with their rule and with their form of government. Most of the videos are like this. Some of they bring out a very strange kind of cinematography, the Hollywood camera style with lots of visual effects. Lots of visual effects, you would find them in their videos. Lots of visual effects. This is one of their mass brutality thing which we don't want to see. And they would use lots and loads of the American soldiers' pictures that they would be burning down or they would be in the war and they would be in the calamity, and they would say we are coming from them and we are going to attack them. Okay, sometimes they would also threaten the world leaders. They would tell the world leaders, for example, they threatened Obama at that time, that we are coming for you and we are taking America and we are coming from this land and that land, and they used it intensively in their videos. This is one of the video that is being taken from a video game they have made, and they were telling Obama and that this is how they were attacking a White House, by the way. They were also trying to rewrite the narrative in history, by the way. They rewrite the history and the narrative of the Islamic State and the Iraq and Syria. And they are still present on the YouTube, on the Twitter, on the Facebook, on the Telegram. They are present, 100% present over there. But now it's a bit difficult, like, you know, to trace them, because most of them are, like, you know, either in English or either in Arabic or, like, you know, in local languages. But if you follow them, so you are being followed at the same time instantly by the intelligence agency, because we can follow them. So it's good to know about how they do and how they work and how they think. But if you think, like, out of curiosity just to go and check their profiles and check their online presence, remember this thing, that it's a kind of a labyrinth, you can get caught.
So stay out of it.
Yeah, stay out of it. Because once you go into it, they would keep on contacting you then. And you won't be able to block them. You won't be able to block them. So the government agencies and everything would be looking at you, that what exactly this person has been doing and how he's been. So they are everywhere, by the way. They are on the Facebook, they are in the media, they are totally present even still now. But I would suggest you, as a student of journalism, that stay away from it. Like, you know, try not to pop in, like, you know, their messaging structures or their messages, because once you go into it, you would be receiving them. Even if you block them, you will be receiving them no matter what by other means, because they have already got your ID. So they keep on, like, you know, from different sources and from different parts, they will be keeping on, like, you know, sending you the material. So this can prove as a very lethal for a person who doesn't know the security protocols. Any question, please?
Very, very good. Thanks very much.